Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Happy Hour Headlines. I have an exciting guest today. Ava Gencheva is the founder of Voiced, an education and advisory company focused on helping students and families navigate high stakes academic and life decisions with clarity, rigor, and personal agency. With over 2 decades of experience as an educator, school leader, and a college admissions counselor, she has worked at the intersection of institutional systems and individual development. Her book, The Plot Twist Is You, is one of the best guides to writing a college admissions essay. So I'm very excited to have her here, and I think she'll provide some really helpful information to our viewers.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I've got a few questions that I'd like to ask you. About your career and your book. So, first of all, I'd like to talk about Voiced. What problem was Voiced created to solve that traditional college counseling doesn't address?
So, when I started Voiced in 2018, I had already had quite a bit of an experience working with students, and I was an educator for over 20 years. I was a program director. So, I was really deep in the trenches working with students of all ages and seeing that no matter what we did as at the school level, when the students started preparing for college, they discovered that they're not ready. There was a lot of anxiety around the process. The parents were getting advice from neighbors and cousins and the entire community, or like I call it, the parking lot talk. And that was creating even more anxiety. So, what I realized is that when students came and started approaching me to help them with their college applications, assess their profiles, and at the same time, I was also a reader for UCLA. I compared the expectations the colleges have as an outcome and what the students were trying to last minute provide and create in the form of an application. And I saw there is a huge misunderstanding. There's a huge gap, and that was creating a lot of anxiety. So when I reverse engineer the process and I start from what the colleges expect and what a college student really needs to have prepared so they're successful and they're happy and they can plan for their long-term career, I realized that there is a lot we need to do with our students more than just testing and assessing and spending time running around for SAT prep. There was a lot more that was unspoken, unseen, unaddressed. The parents couldn't see because they're just too close to the students themselves. And also, they have, unique attachment being parents. So I realized that stepping in as a coach from outside who has experience on both ends, I can merge that. I can bridge that gap and I can bring more clarity so there's less panic and much better preparation. So that is how 2018 Voiced began. But the whole idea of calling my company Voiced precisely because I felt that students lack voice when they prepare for college. They are at school, they're a little bit afraid to speak up. They have to, still maybe raise their hand to speak up. They sometimes even have to walk in a straight line. There are like 30 something students in a classroom, and the teacher is the ultimate authority that knows it all, and there is a wrong answer. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of unnecessary fear, and the students really did not have a voice. They couldn't speak they couldn't even ask a question out of fear of being perceived as not intelligent or knowledgeable enough. And I think it was time to step in and change that.
So, I noticed that you talk about voice rather than achievement. Could you elaborate more on what exactly you mean by this?
Yes, of course. So when I say voice, I'm talking about having clarity of thought, having self awareness, having that ability to explain why you do what you do. No matter what kind of extracurricular activities you're pursuing, or you're part of a club, or you have decided simply not to do anything, what is the story behind it? So, not just what you have done as a series of checklists, but also what is your story? What is the idea behind it? Because achievements are really easy to list. And once you create the resume, sometimes the idea is that that is you. It equates you, but it is not actually. So voice is much harder to fake. So in today's admissions landscape, every applicant really looks impressive on paper because there's a lot of preparation and there are many opportunities. And there, in many cases, there are two, three coaches working behind one applicant. So the grades, the test scores, the leadership titles, these are no longer achievements that can differentiate one candidate from another. Many times students look very identical, very well prepared, but very identical on paper. So voice really matters much more now because again the admissions, they're reading thousands of applications, and if the candidate looks really perfect and many of them look perfect and equally perfect, then the students, they have a difficult time standing out. But what really makes you unique is your voice and understanding your substance and being able to articulate that. So that is what I focus on.
That's a good life skill beyond college admissions, just being able to explain yourself and what you stand for and, any opinion that you have, whatever it may be, just being able to articulate yourself really well. So that sounds like not only are you prepping them well for college, but just for life in general.
I agree. When I started my business and I had been a part of a very large school system prior to that, I too had to sit down and reflect and articulate who was I outside of the title as a director, and how the teachers knew me and how my supervisors knew me and how the entire parent community knew me. I had to find out who I really am outside of the titles. And then I had to also tell my own story, and sometimes it's a continuous search. Entrepreneurs really have to find who they are, and it takes sometimes a very, very long time, even for us as adults, and even as we change, and as my students too go through series of experiences, positive and negative, and then they discover the next thing in their career. There's always that moment where you have to kind of sit down and think, who am I, what do I stand for, what am I creating that makes a difference. So it is, I believe, personally, from experience as well as an educator and as a person and entrepreneur, that it is a great skill to have. And it really, it's very helpful to have a mentor, someone who can give you that perspective from outside, give you feedback. I always ask for feedback. Give me three things I need to improve. And it was painful at first, but then you learn to take feedback as a blessing, really. So, yeah.
There's so much to learn from feedback from your existing clients. And eventually, hopefully, we could get to the point where there's not a lot of feedback. It's like
Right.
starting
Yeah.
out, you
Yeah.
probably get a lot more than you would now. So, with so many high achieving students, they feel lost despite doing everything right. Why do you think that is?
This is such a good question, and I see this more and more. So sometimes earlier I felt like if I just roll up my sleeves and try to cover as many schools and as many students as possible, we can definitely bring in that self-confidence, and that fear of missing out should definitely be eradicated. But what I see is that the more prepared the students are and the more achievements they try to stack up, the more they feel that they're not doing something right, or there's something that they're lacking, and that is because they're not trained, for lack of a better word, how to reflect.
Hmm.
They really learn how to optimize at school. And optimization is almost like, the bottom line, the checklist, I'm prepared, but they do not have that ability and know how to sit down and reflect. So we have to teach that because they're really busy. There's activities, there's tests, there's APs and
So
SATs, and it's
busy.
just, they're so busy, right? And then there's the screen, and then there's the comparison from Insta and all that stuff. So that ability to reflect is not there. And we have to, as educators and parents, I think we have to raise that awareness. So when they spend such a long time checking boxes, advanced classes, and leadership roles, They do not ask themselves, okay, so why am I doing this? What is really my why? So when it comes time for them to write the essay, or make a decision about college majors, colleges, they freeze. So I see this constantly. And these students are not lazy. They do not procrastinate. They're not entitled in many cases. They are simply not coached properly, or they're not told how to sit down and reflect. They're overmanaged. They're overguided. So I do address some of these topics in my book. Um, and anyone who is interested, not just learning how to write the essay, but more about how to sit down and reflect, there's some guiding questions here that I think they might find really helpful
Could you give an example
for
of a
them.
guiding question that you would ask?
Yes, sure. So one question would be ultimately asking yourself the why question. So, why am I doing this? What is the purpose? And how does it make me feel? So when you ask yourself, why am I pursuing this?
Mhm.
And then you give, maybe a couple of answers as to, because my best friend is doing it, because I want to look good on the applications, because my mom and dad are happy, or because I really want to get into NYU. Okay, these are the questions on the surface. But then when you ask the question, how does it make you feel? Where do you feel the stress in your body? Does your stomach tighten when you think of this activity and it's like, oh, another practice, and get the bag and get the timer and hit the road running, and you're doing it because you're conditioned, you respond to stress, and when it is really stressful, then you're up in arms and you're ready to perform, and then you go back home but you feel empty. So when you start asking these questions, the answers will tell you a lot. And then ultimately, once you have some answers, ask yourself, what connects these choices that I'm making? Are they anchored in my values? Is it really my blueprint? Do I feel comfortable with this, or will I just drop it as soon as I get the next achievement or the acceptance? I saw a lot of nonprofit organizations sprouting in 2020 up to almost 2025. The nonprofit organizations that students started and dropped as soon as they got to college, it was just becoming a fad. And slowly what happened is the admissions officers were like, oh, another NGO, just put it in the bin. So it was not impressive anymore, because there was really no why, and it was not sustainable. It was not a long-term something. So what do I actually care about, and how does it make me feel? How does it help me in the long run? Again, there's series about 15 or so questions that I have in my book, but these are the main ones that I would start with.
That's fantastic, 'cause college is such a huge decision, and I think a lot of students feel like they have to go into a certain major or to a certain school, and most of it's influenced by, like you said, their parents. Or I remember I wanted to go into psychology because my best friend wanted to be a psychologist, and I thought, "Oh, that sounds fun." Meanwhile, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and that's okay. You can admit that to yourself and take the time, and you can go in undecided, because you probably know the stat on this, but I can say anecdotally, when I was in school, I'd say at least 50% of people who went in one major changed halfway through, including myself. I was psych for one semester.
Yeah, 85% is what the statistics show,
Wow.
which is really high number. And yes, everyone should take that time to understand who they are and what they care about and what is the best path for them based on their personal qualities and their passions, their talents, and how much work they're ready to put into a particular career. And stay flexible,
Mhm.
stay open, have some sort of a hybrid option, and where you're able to integrate several different fields that are supporting each other. Many fields act as an anchor. From one field, you can pivot into another.
Mhm.
But when you have that clarity, when you have that understanding, you have done the research, or someone is coaching you, helping you throughout it, you feel a lot more confident, and you do not feel like you have failed. So
Mhm.
that feeling of, oh, I don't want to change my major because I don't want to feel like I have failed. And that is definitely a wrong approach. But at the same time, when you think about the large percentage of students changing their major today, and when you see how much college costs now, it is also financially not wise to keep changing your majors, right?
Mm.
So if you're paying 80, $90,000 for a year for college tuition, and if especially if you're borrowing toward that, which ideally you shouldn't, but we understand what goes on nowadays and how difficult it is. Not every school is 90,000, but the top 10 and even public schools today, they're anywhere between 45 to 60, $65,000, which we're not even including sometimes lodging, travel, food, and other expenses. So having that orientation early on and having someone who can show you how, if you pick this path, this is how far you can go and this is how you can pivot. And if you pick this far path based on your qualities and what I see so far, I also run assessments for my students. These are very deep 4 layers of assessments to examine their personality, to examine their proclivities, their not just their passion, but also what they bring in terms of academic viability. And those assessments can pinpoint very clearly what is the best fit for them in terms of career. And then from there, reverse engineer into top 3 majors
Okay.
and what are your best options.
That's wonderful. Students are lucky to have someone like you, but I also feel like
Thank you.
you know the parents that push their students into a certain field, like you have to be a doctor. So I feel like they'd be kind of brave sending their student to you because they have to be open. They have to be ready for your feedback, which maybe you're not cut out to be a doctor. Maybe you're creative and should get into art and you can be very successful at that.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes these are the assessments that actually educate the parents as well.
That's fantastic.
Because the entire process really is okay, we'll sit down together, we'll work together on this. It's not just myself and the student and then we have the parents putting pressure. We sit down, we evaluate, we have the tools to kind of give feedback for them to understand that in the long run this is not going to be a good fit. So then they can go into this with understanding, clarity, and the correct expectations. So there's no one is at fault, and there's no hurt feelings and slam doors. And ultimately, I think parents learn a lot through the process. They learn about their child as well, and I think it puts the given the right expectations. There's also the pressure from the parent minimizes, so they're able to have outings and dinner conversations that are not about college and
Mhm.
not about I was a doctor and I went through such hard time to provide for you and now you have to be the same.
Yeah.
Right, so that is for the parents learn a lot through the process as well. The times have changed, and they're continuously changing very, very fast, so having those conversations and feedback is very helpful for all.
We live in such a fascinating world where you can be successful at literally anything. My job didn't even exist 20 years ago, so my parents never could have predicted as a child, and I think it's a really cool time to be alive. And also, what is success? Like, are we talking financial or happiness or giving back to the world? There's so many different definitions of success, but I think what you're doing is fantastic, honing in on what are you good at? What are you interested in? And you were talking about that feeling in your stomach, like, do you get a sense of dread when you have to do this? But there's also that feeling that you get in your stomach, like butterflies. Oh, I'm so excited to do this. Or the idea of this career lights me up. And I think it's important to listen to that and lean in and find something that brings you so much joy because you spend so much time at your career. And I'm sure you love helping students. Like that probably brings you so much joy.
Yes, it does. I used to say I'll do it for free.
Mhm.
I'll do it at any time. I'll do it in all shapes and forms. And sometimes it's actually really hard to hold back the coach in me. So I try to not dispense any unsolicited advice, but I'm very passionate and very excited about the times we live in. I agree, absolutely. There's so many professions that never existed before, or they existed in some other um, maybe level where it was kind of hard to get through and break the glass ceiling, right? People who are really good with social media today, for example, and they're just natural in front of the screen and cameras, and they liven when they have attention. Those people would have made excellent anchors once upon a time at the TV stations. But today, they have the world at their fingertips with social media, and the possibilities are endless. So much talent out there that will find expression in what they're best to do. It's amazing. I totally agree. Yes.
I have one final question for you. What are parents getting wrong about preparation for elite colleges?
Yeah. So this really ties again with the entire stress about what am I missing and what else can I do. Um, the biggest mistake is again, accumulating activities willy-nilly
Hmm.
and checking the box and just thinking that, okay, the more APs I stack up, the more clubs, the more awards, that really is going to qualify me. But, the elite colleges do not really look at who are the busiest students. And, oh, wow, or this student's got a 4.8 GPA and he's the hardest working student and we will accept him, said no college ever, right? So that is not what they're looking for. They're looking again for intention. And many parents believe that, stacking up the achievements again, pushing, or even students believe that too. But this is a misconception. And another one is thinking that, oh, I can do it in my senior year and I'll just prepare my resume, submit my applications, and I'm good to go. So the application is heavily, the entire focus is heavily on the application in senior year, and they don't realize that the admissions, what they really look for is how was the student largely shaped throughout experiences during the first couple of years of their life. So how they chose activities in the beginning, and how they developed their interests and why, and how their story is reflected and their experiences are reflected in the application. So this all takes time to craft. It takes time for me to, for example, know the student very well and also know their voice and maybe help them find the best way to tell their story, or what is their story even. So preparation is really not about, putting pressure or being perfect, but it is about studying the landscape, studying yourself, and then finding the best alignment. So you don't end up also in a school where you're miserable and
Right.
for 4 years you think, okay, I achieved, I worked so hard, and why did they do that for? I see no use of this. And that's when and their first year in college is really hard for a lot, maybe because that's when they kind of wake up to the reality of, okay, I worked so hard and this is where I ended up going and this is what I got. Um, so to avoid that, it is really important to plan ahead of time and understand. So you're doing it intentionally. So not about pressure or about perfection, but really alignment. So avoid any sort of last minute quick polishing and fixing and
Mhm.
stress.
Love that. You mentioned getting to know students. So I'm curious what it looks like when someone wants to work with you. Are there a certain amount of sessions where you meet with the family, or how does it work exactly?
So I have unlimited meetings, and the students have my calendar. They have access to me through it's a college planner tool that I have, where they can find me, text me, email me. I get it immediately. So they have a constant access to me, and I'm able to coach them on the spot if something is urgent, or plan our meetings accordingly based on their schedule. And of course, I respond to parents. I coach parents all the time too. As part of the process, I have workshops that I organize for my students as in a group, and anyone else who would like to join in and also get some help if they're not able to have maybe the time or afford in more of a one-on-one coaching. I have those workshops every month. Publish those workshops on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on LinkedIn, everywhere possible. and anyone can hop in and ask questions. I respond. I respond to questions on my Facebook group. College Admissions Mastermind is the name of it. Um, yeah, so that is how we get the work done. So it is not really per hour. It is not, it is not per little, chunks of the process. The idea is to actually create a good outcome. That's what I'm focused on.
It's wonderful. Well, you're doing great work, and I know
Thank
that you're
you.
helping, honestly, not to be dramatic or anything, but this is helping the lives of these students. If they go to a certain school with a certain program because of your guidance, that changes everything. So it's great work you're doing, and it was wonderful to meet with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I really hope that I have helped students, not so much again, but the focus on college, or it may seem like that when we start giving out the list of things that need to be done. But the entire idea is to have fulfillment in your life, to meet the people you were meant to meet, to
Mm.
be in an environment where you feel inspired, to not feel drained and overworked and overtested, but to have that ability to know who you are, to be in the right place so you can also get guidance from other coaches and professors and faculty. And you deserve to have enriched life so you can plan for the best version of yourself, even if that is not the major in the long term for you. Even if you change it 2 times through the process or 3 times, even if you end up practicing something else, there should be that period of time that is so formative in your late teens to early 20s where you have the trampoline. It's a rite of passage where you should feel whole, supported, and enriched in every possible way. These are, even for what's worth, memories that you can cherish and tell others. And that is, that should be the overall outcome. That should be the long-term planning that brings you fulfillment and happiness and success. Like you said, whatever your definition of success is, it could be family, it could be financial success, it could be a career success, or just to have the best friends and maintain good relationship success, whatever it is.
And don't stress about having all of it because, like we were saying, students are stressed about having the perfect lives and checking every single box. It's okay. You can just pick one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No one has it all, actually.
Hmm.
So, yeah, we're all in this together,
Hmm.
one step at a time.
Well, it was wonderful meeting with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison, for having me. It was great. It was great to hear your questions and for your thoughtful asks. And just, it's just very pleasant being in your company. So thank you so much.
All the best.
All the best to you too. Thank you.